Welcome everyone, episode 56 of the Mindful Marketer Livestream. And this is about the art of being remarkable. So welcome everyone from around the world. We had hundreds of people sign up and participate in today's session with Guy Kawasaki. And before we get started, let's have a couple of housekeeping items. First, let me ask you a question. We had a lot of marketing people join us today and register. Is your marketing leadership career really remarkable, or is it stalled out? If you're feeling like the pandemic and the world around us has made you feel more isolated and you're just not innovating in the ways you'd like to, I would invite you to consider applying to the Marketing Growth Leaders community. We are now 10 years strong. We have helped our members generate tens of millions in additional revenues, get deeper relationships with customers, and build more fulfilling careers. So make sure you go to marketinggrowthleaders.com for more information, or drop me a note to learn more information. And also, I want to start by welcoming our sponsor, Marvia. Let's hear a word from them. And let's begin with the elephant in the room. It's been a very tough week for so many people around the world. So my hope today is for peace in the world for our Ukrainian friends. And may today's session bring you some remarkable inspiration to keep doing something important and to make a positive dent in the universe. So let's talk about Guy Kawasaki, 15-time author, entrepreneur, evangelist, and now the host of the Remarkable People podcast. Guy, welcome to the stage.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's really good to see you again.
Always a pleasure.
And you know what? My trusty producer, Marissa, and I were chatting beforehand, and I went and found some photos from long ago and Marissa, my producer, do you mind sharing a couple of photos with us that remember when we were both keynote speakers at that huge conference in Phoenix for Tesco Technologies?
Oh man, I had a lot more black hair then.
You did. You look really young there, Guy. You look great.
You sure that's me?
That's right. That is you. I remember that so well. And there's another one. Remember, we both were invited to South by Southwest.
Yeah.
And your book came out and you were signing books at the Mercedes-Benz hospitality booth.
Yep.
2018.
Those were the days.
You had a little more gray hair in that one.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, you joined us in San Francisco at the CMO's Leading Innovation Conference. And you showed up not only with books, because we had books for everyone, but you also delivered socks for everybody, which I thought was very nice. And Marissa showed that photo earlier of all of our wonderful CMOs, and everyone left with a really cool pair of socks. So
yeah, that company's Merge 4, and to this day it does extremely well. So if you want the world's coolest socks, it's Merge 4, the number 4.
Merge 4, and side by side with that, I have to say Bombas is, I love my Bombas socks and my Merge 4 socks. And those are great brands changing the world. I want to also thank people who put some GoFundMe pages in our comments today. We have Alan from Massachusetts. We had people sign up. Yes, Ryan, socks. We had, remember, people, we didn't know we were going to talk about socks today. I want to remind people that Dean is here from Texas. We have Mary. Shashi is from Virginia. and we appreciate everyone coming back. This is episode 56. So here's one thing I know about you, Guy. 21 years ago, I knew it right away. Your curiosity has led you down some interesting paths. You've done 118 podcasts so far. You live a great life. You surf. You have a beautiful family. What keeps you working so diligently on these podcasts when you could be just hanging out, watching hockey, hanging out with your family, and surfing?
Yeah, well, so there's one episode per week. Typically, that episode is an hour. I probably spend, just so you know what's involved with one episode of my podcast, I probably spend 2 or 3 hours prepping for that episode. There's the actual, 1 hour and a half or so of recording. And then I spend another 2 to 3 hours editing it. And then it goes to a sound designer. And simultaneously, it's being transcribed first by a service and then second by a human. And so when it finally comes out, there's social media, there's the album cover, there's the description, there's the podcast itself, there's a transcription, because I want to make it accessible to deaf people. So basically, I'm on a mission to make people remarkable. And so if you count everybody, there's probably 15 hours of work in each 1 hour episode of my podcast.
Well, I'm not surprised. And then you got picked up by the HubSpot network. Was that your foray into monetizing the podcast, or are you doing that more just for the love of your mission?
So for a long time, my podcast was sponsored by the Remarkable Tablet Company, which is just a great coincidence. But that sponsorship has ended, and I'm not sure what to do. I'm at a place in life where I can afford to do things that may not be monetized yet. So I just view the podcast as probably my finest work in my career. Like, compared to everything else I've done, my podcast is the best work I've ever done. And I think it's going to be my legacy. And it's not because it's me spouting off in my podcast. It's because I have recorded, and I think, very good conversations with Jane Goodall, Margaret Atwood, Christy Yamaguchi. Oh God, you really want me to go down the list? I mean,
no. I mean, I have listened to, I have counted, I listened to 100 of them. You've done 118. Wow. And then other people in my 100 coaches community, like Dory Clark and Alyssa Cohn, yes, have been guests of yours. So of course I love to sing their praises. And your ability to accelerate your own learning and become a podcasting expert is really impressive. I mean, I think it took Tim Ferriss at least 250 podcasts until I saw him really hit his stride.
Well, I don't know if I've hit my stride yet, but in a sense, I think that my entire career has prepared me for this podcast because, from my point of view, so first of all, understand that my podcast is 95% guest, 5% me. It's not about, me spouting off 50% of the time. So I want to bring out the wisdom and knowledge of Jane Goodall. And people sign on to my podcast to listen to Jane Goodall, not me. And so that takes some humility and some kind of, firm grasp of reality. And I really think that this is my best legacy. And someday when people want to understand Jane Goodall or Margaret Atwood or Ariana Huffington or Bob Cialdini, and by the way, most of your audience are marketing people?
At least half of the people who signed up are marketing professionals or CMOs.
Okay. So if you're a marketing professional or CMO, I'll tell you, I don't know of a better collection of podcasts. So I have David Ocker, the father of branding, Bob Cialdini, the father of influence, Katie Milkman, who is the next Bob Cialdini, Angela Duckworth, MacArthur Award winner, grit. um it goes on and on. And if you're into influencers, I have iJustine, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, Scott Galloway. uh I have the who's who of marketing. So this career of mine, 40 years, has prepared me to be able to ask very good questions, probably that most podcasters, it just doesn't occur to them to ask because they were never operators. They were journalists or something like that. Whereas I had to actually do marketing, so I can ask practical marketing questions. And I just happen to love the process of editing. So one of my guests is a guy named Mark Maron, and he wrote the book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F
Beep.
Word.
Yes, beep.
Yeah. And, one of the things in his episode that I learned and I really took to heart is that he said that, you find something that you really enjoy doing when you enjoy the shit sandwich. So, there's a lot about podcasting that people would consider a shit sandwich, which is 2 or 3 hours of prep, 2 or 3 hours of editing. That's 6 hours right there. That's a shit sandwich, but that's the shit sandwich that I love. And so, listen, my podcast may not be recognized for how great it is until I die, but that's okay. I'll just join all the other artists who went in that route.
No, I love that you put that much time and energy in. If you were to have written a book instead, or a couple of books during COVID in lockdown, it would have taken as much time. And I went ahead and chose. Yeah, I chose to skip writing another book during COVID, and I doubled down on live streaming because my live streams, of course, are available on all podcast networks now as well. And we can repurpose. Before today, Guy, I received a lot of questions for the discussion around content strategy. Okay. So and by the way, people are already enjoying your legacy, and people are putting links in the chat of your books, of your podcast, it's all kinds of content. So
I don't have to
lift a finger. You don't have to lift a finger. It's fun when other people are singing your praises. And yes, thanks, Shashi. And thanks, Bill from Portland, Oregon. So one of the questions I received was, what is the future of podcasting now that we've lived through 2.5 years of insanity? And it seems like everyone can be a podcaster. What's next?
Well, I mean, everybody can be a podcaster. Everybody could be an author. Everybody could be a singer. I mean, the great technologies of our time have democratized everything. Anybody can be a designer with Canva, right? And so that doesn't mean that just because anybody can do it, everybody's going to be good at it. So thank you for the technology that enabled self-publishing, but every self-published book is hardly good. So the barrier has been reduced, but not eliminated. The future of podcasting, listen, I hate answering questions like that because frankly, I don't know. Even more frankly, nobody knows. And so, I think the future is yours to seize and invent, as opposed to listen to some pundit tell you what it's going to be. I don't know. When the pandemic started, I thought, oh man, this is just going to be so great for podcasting because now people, they're getting 2 or 3 hours of travel time back from their, pre-pandemic days. And now they can listen to podcasts for 2 or 3 hours more a day. But I guess that just did not work out. I don't know about you, but my listenership went down during the pandemic. And my explanation is that, yeah, you may have gotten back your 2 hours of commuting time, but now guess what? You wake up, you have to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner for your family. You have to make sure their iPads are working. You have to make sure that their online virtual class is working. Then you have to make sure they're doing their homework. So you're not exactly sitting in a train listening to a podcast, which you may look forward to returning to soon. So now if that theory is right, now that we're going back to work, maybe podcasting will pick up again because now people will be commuting again. So who knows? Who knows?
Yes. And for all the CMOs who asked the question in advance about, well, what are your tips for podcasting or for content in general? I mean, we could debate all day long what the proper format is. 30-minute podcasts, 30-minute
Yeah.
live streams, 1 hour, 2 hours. And the answer is just my answer for everyone is keep experimenting and don't think there is a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And see what your customers say.
I use live stuff only to promote my podcast. And that's because my podcast is heavily, heavily edited. So, there's sort of two theories in podcasting. One is you press record and you catch every every tongue click, everything, but that's life and you're recording it true to life and people want to listen to it true to life. I do not subscribe to that theory at all. So with my podcast, I eliminate almost every filler words, all gone. And when people click their tongue, when an alarm goes off on their iPhone, all of that is taken out because I want my guests to be perceived as the most remarkable people who never says, that kind of stuff. So now there may be other people who just turn on record and they're completely successful. Listen, my subscriber download is rounding error compared to Joe Rogan, right? But I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan. And
you're not looking for a $200 million podcast deal right now.
I wouldn't turn that down, but I'm not going to bring on idiots who talk about why you shouldn't get vaccinated and, you should take Clorox and how it's good to be a Nazi. That's not going to happen on my podcast. So,
Guy, we're getting a lot of comments too about how people are consuming podcasts these days. I will let people keep chatting about that. And let's jump to something you've been touching on a lot more in the last few years than before when I first met you. You spend more time being much more vocal about social justice and your views on politics and world events.
To put it mildly.
Now, this is a very hot topic for some of my clients right now, my CMO clients. And one person who has gotten a lot of arrows in her back lately is the former CMO of Levi Strauss, Jen Say. She has been all over the media because she came out and said on her social feed, I want children back in school. And she moved from San Francisco to Denver, Colorado, so that her children could go physically to school.
Okay.
And of course, Levi Strauss, I'm air quoting, reprimanded her by saying, why don't you leave? Here's $1 million and, sign this NDA. And she refused.
What do you to leave? She refused to sign, or she refused to take the $1 million?
No, she refused the NDA. She refused to sign it and she refused the nice package. And, now I just wonder, with companies being hotbeds of social justice, can we as marketing leaders ever separate our identities from the companies for whom we work?
Well, I think the extreme and positive example is probably Mark Benioff. So, and he was recently a guest and he discussed this. So when Indiana signed into law something that was anti-LGBTQ, Mark Benioff sent out a tweet that said, we're pulling out of Indiana. And then guess what? Pence called him up. Pence was governor at that moment, and they worked out a compromise. And a flip kind of example was that Salesforce employees were protesting the fact that, maybe ICE was using Salesforce. So, I guess the narrative was ICE is using Salesforce to optimize kicking out immigrants. It's that kind of thinking. And Mark addressed that. So I would say Mark has done that. Now, if you look at something like Apple, also an interesting case. So Apple, and this is something that I just do not agree with what Apple did, which is, when Trump was president, there were lots of times where here's Tim Cook having lunch at the White House with Donald Trump. Here's Tim Cook showing Donald Trump around the Macintosh factory in Texas. And Donald Trump is telling the story that, oh, he brought back manufacturing to America. And here he is walking in a factory in Texas. Well, that factory was there before Donald Trump. So that's another example. But I would say, generally speaking, that most companies should probably stay out of it. You can, of course, you support things for health and welfare and all that. But to get into true politics, I would say it's probably a mistake for most companies. Now, this is clearly a case of do as I say, not as I do. I am not a company, and I am not looking for another job. And I am at the tail end of my career. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, there's nothing you could do to me at this point. If I were in the middle of my career as a CMO for Levi Strauss or, Procter & Gamble or something, believe me, my social media would not be what it is. But I'm at the end of my career. So it doesn't matter. I don't give a shit anymore, quite frankly. So I'll tell you a story. So in 2016, I was in Germany, and I met with some friends. They were about 40, 45 years old. And this is just as the elections were happening, and, it was Trump versus Hillary. And he said, Guy, so to this day, we don't understand how our grandparents let Hitler come to power and let Hitler take over Germany. And they said to me, Guy, it's 1930 in America right now. So do you want your grandchildren to wonder what your stance was on this issue? And I felt so convicted by that. And that's where, I just flipped the switch and I went all in on politics. Now, just so you know, when you do that, you will get a lot of hate. And it ranges from, you sure you want to go down this path? Lisa,
no, I think you've made, I want to make sure we capture one key thing you said, which is if you and I work for ourselves, we are the boss of us, and whatever we want to riff on, we can create our own bully pulpit.
Right.
But if those of us who are watching this work for a company, if you are employed, you have to have the discernment to know what to say and what not to say, and to have some kind of, shall I say, have some class. I'm going to get on my little pedestal for a minute, and then I want to bounce back to you because we've got a couple questions. I'm noticing on LinkedIn an unfortunate thing where people are riffing. They are fully employed CMOs, and they are just they are using scatological remarks left and right in their
like
posts. What? F-bombs, S-bombs.
On LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, and I am not a fan. I don't know why we need to do that.
Hold on here, time out.
You're saying
they're using F-bombs like, F vaccination, F masking, or F people who are anti-mask, F people who are not vaxxed? What are they effing?
Some of them are effing work environments, or it could be a political stance that they're taking. So it is, you'll find a panoply of comments where people have completely removed their filters. And I want people to know my take on it, which is, could we please show a little class? That's my take on it. Well, I don't think you need to do that on a place like LinkedIn.
I think
to
it's
get your
stupid.
point across.
I mean, I would listen. I even in my most radical political sense, I don't drop any F-bombs. I may point out, for example, very recently, if you looked at my LinkedIn account, the strongest thing I may say is I am shaking my head. DeSantis is telling teenagers that they're stupid to wear masks. Okay, that just boggles my mind. The governor of Florida is telling these teenage kids, you're idiots to wear masks. Okay, that is just not appropriate. That is just nonsensical to me. But do I say F-bomb DeSantis, even though I believe that? No. So, and I think I'm at, 4 or 5 standard deviations towards the line of telling it like it is. So I wouldn't do it. I think that, especially on LinkedIn, which is a network for sort of doing business, professional career, et cetera, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it on any social media platform. It's just not worth it. Now, if you take a stand like I have, so you will get anger from people ranging from, oh, Guy, you're antagonizing 50% of your followers. I am not antagonizing 50% of my followers, because 50% of my followers are not anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-women's rights, anti-LGBTQ rights, anti-voting rights, anti-all that stuff. The people who follow me aren't like that. So, it ranges to threats. And so what I do is I have an attitude. I just block people. It's just, whatever. You want to do that? Go ahead. I block you. I don't care.
Right. And you have evolved as a human from being an evangelist of marketing and social media to an evangelist of humanity and human rights. No, I really see that. And I just had this moment and realization. And this is why I used the word curiosity earlier on in the conversation, because you are so curious and you do embrace Carol Dweck's growth mindset. So
I do. I do for sure.
It is just so, that is just who you are. And by the way, another word I want to ban, please, authentic. Okay, can we please ban authentic? You're not authentic. You're Guy. I say you're not authentic. You're Guy. You found your voice. This is your voice today. So, there are words like synergy and authentic. I just kind of get tired of them. So I'm allowed to be
I would
tired
also
of
say
certain
transparent.
words. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So another pro tip from Lisa, and you can throw this out. You don't need to take it, but pro tip number 2 of the day is remove the word authentic from your marketing copy. It's people are sick and tired of it at this point.
Well, I think a lot of people use words like open, transparent, authentic to justify that they're being an asshole. So it's like, I'm an asshole, but I'm open and transparent and authentic, so that's okay. Well, no, an asshole is an asshole.
Yes. And oh my gosh, I hope the LinkedIn bots are not listening right now, because we have sworn more in today's live stream than all 55 of my other shows. So LinkedIn gods, if you are listening, please know we are good people and we are not going to swear anymore. Okay. So some important questions here. If you were, as we're getting close to the end of this amazing discussion, I want to say hello to Mary. Mary loves the growth mindset concept. Alan came up with a new word, raw-authentic. Thank you, Alan. That is really great. That is really great. And and we also have, okay, Ryan likes my use of the English language. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. You're welcome. My name is Lisa Norell, and I am a word nerd. Okay, so a couple of very important questions. When will you have Laird Hamilton on your Remarkable People podcast?
Well, it's, I know someone who could get Laird Hamilton. Right now, I'm working on Kelly Slater. I don't, I've already had Sean Thompson and Chris Burdish, who are two, if you're in the surfing world, you know who they are. So I don't want to get too heavy. I don't want 10% of my guests to be surfers. But I'm working on Kelly Slater, and I will get Laird Hamilton. But then, I have a very close personal friend named Bob Pearson, and he's the Pearson in Pearson Arrow. And if you're a surfer, you exactly know who Pearson Arrow is, because Bob Pearson is one of the top shapers in the world. So I should also have him. So now we're getting down this slippery slope, but pretty soon it's Remarkable Surfers by Guy Kawasaki, not Remarkable People.
I know. Well, remember, you're the boss of you.
That's true.
Maybe that's something you would love to do for a month or two. And if it gives you joy, it's going to give other people joy because
Well, yeah.
you know the old adage about Guy Kawasaki, Guy's golden touch. What Guy touches turns to gold.
No, no, no. You
So
got that
maybe
wrong, Lisa.
you can drive a lot of revenue and healthy lifestyles to people and
No,
tell them the
Lisa,
power of surfing.
I, I don't want to burst your bubble, but you got that wrong. So, Guy's golden touch is not whatever I touch turns to gold. Guy's golden touch is whatever's gold Guy touches. So, Canva is gold, so I touched it. I didn't make Canva gold. Canva was going to be gold regardless. So, what I did is because of Peg Fitzpatrick, she recognized that Canva was going to be gold, and she told me to touch it. And Guy is no fool. I listen when Peg Fitzpatrick or my wife tells me to do something.
Yes. That is called wisdom, Guy. That is called wisdom. So, Guy, my closing thought is if you were planning a dinner party and you only had enough seating for 3 other guests, who would they be and why?
3? Why not just 1?
All right, go with 1.
Well, first of all, I'm not Mike Pence, so I can have dinner with women that I'm not married to. Okay. I would say Stacey Abrams. If somebody said, listen, if any of you out there are BFFs with Stacey Abrams, you tell her she is my number 1 pick for who I would like on my podcast. And if not her, then okay, Michelle Obama. But number 1 pick, Stacey Abrams. I think she may have single-handedly saved democracy in Georgia.
Thank you for that recommendation. And since we have many hundreds of people talking and listening and chatting right now, if any of you know Stacey Abrams, you know how to reach Guy. And Guy, you're ubiquitous on all social channels.
I'll send you a lifetime supply of socks if you get me Stacey Abrams.
I'll tell you who needs to help you connect with Stacey Abrams. The CMO of United Airlines, Tom O'Toole, who I'm not sure if Tom ever paid you back $40 that he borrowed from you.
Okay. Do you know Tom by any chance, or you just remember that story?
Oh, I remember your stories. I mean, we've been friends for 21 years. I'm going to remember a few of these things.
Okay, so people are wondering, what the hell are they talking about? So this is a really good story. So I was meeting with Tom, and he caught a cab from SFO to Redwood City, and he forgot his wallet or something. And so he told the cab driver, I don't have cash. And the cab driver says, he won't take a credit card. He can't take a credit card. And then finally, Tom convinced him and his dispatchers to take a credit card. But then the cab driver came back and said, no, they changed their mind. They won't take a credit card. So I gave Tom the money to pay for the cab driver. And he never paid me back. To this day, he never paid me back. And I put that story in Wise Guys in case he read it and said, oh, I owe the guy. but the loss of the money makes it worth it to tell this story.
Absolutely. And this is going to be one of my mindful moments in a second, because and by the way, our guest in 2 weeks is Constance Derricks, who just told us in the chat she is going to send a message to Stacey's team for you. So today was worth your time. Guy, we've reached the end of our journey together today. This is the scatological world record show for Lisa Norell. So we have exceeded.
Is that a positive?
We have enjoyed this moment, and my hope is that I can come back March 18th when we welcome Constance Derricks, and hopefully the censors will not kick me off. And I want to. Want to come back.
What are you so worried about? The strongest word we use is asshole. What's the problem?
Exactly. All right. My editors will be beep all the editing for the show. I want to thank you, Guy. It is never a dull moment. You are You are such a light in my life. You have been for 21 years. Come back again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Assuming I can still broadcast.
I'll come
And
back with Stacy.
yeah, we'll come back with Stacy and we'll have a live stream and talk a
All
little bit
righty.
about
Thank
it.
you.
Great to see you, Guy.
Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, my friends, mindful moment time. I could not get to all your comments. However, as you know, I always go back and I do answer your questions. So be sure to put all of them in the chat and follow me on LinkedIn at themindfulmarketer.com so that you don't miss these conversations coming up in the coming months. So my mindful moments, number one is be careful, create guardrails for yourself because it's great to have a bully pulpit on social media. However, if you work for someone or you're working in an environment with people of different political and social views, you've got to have some guardrails. And don't let the word transparency mean that you can say every single thing that is on your mind. That's not how it works. So surround yourself with people who have some class. Number two, remove overused words from your marketing vernacular. Things like authentic. I think raw-authentic wins the word du jour. And number three, keep your books clear. If you owe me $40 or you owe Guy Kawasaki $40, pay up. I'm on Venmo. In any case, those are my three tips for the day, my mindful moments. And I can't wait to see everyone back here on March 18th with my friend Constance Darris, author and the decision doctor who knows how and has advised hundreds of board executives and C-suite executives on how they can tame turmoil. So until March 18th, stay mindful, clean up our language, and have a fantastic weekend.